All throughout 2025, I tried to predict each and every major PLE, and it's your job to watch along and judge how I did. And it all starts with the Royal Rumble. The giant Scott is pacing like a caged lion, but the man in at number 2 is what truly makes the crowd roar.
Say his name and he appears. I believe in Joe Hendry.
The Scottish Warrior versus the Scottish Cult Figure. And it's on! The Rumble is officially underway with a bang, but it isn't long before number 3 enters, and it's former El Campeon, Damian Priest, who goes close to getting McIntyre out, but the big man manages to hold on long enough to hear the boos ring out from the stadium as number 4 arrives. Dominic is in, and you can barely hear yourself think from all of the boos. He slides in the ring, but is immediately dumped out by Joe Hendry, and the crowd goes berserk. Dominic might have just broken Santino's record, and he's trying to tell everyone that he wasn't ready, and he's remonstrating at ringside as the clock counts down for number 5. Dominic is still complaining, and he even tries to complain to Knight, who completely ignores him and enters the fray. And we get a great one-on-one no one expected tonight between Hendry and LA Knight. The crowd eats it up, all while Drew and Priest continue their fight to get back to the top. But of course, before we know it, it's time for number 6, and it's Carmelo Hayes, who, like everyone else, ignores the complaining of Dominic, who is still going on about being eliminated. And the complaining only intensifies when number 7 enters, because it's Finn Balor, a sympathetic ear. Or so he thought, because Finn even ignores him and focuses solely on Damian Priest, which is yet to be settled in a big way. And it leaves Hayes pairing off with Knight and the 2 Scotsmen going at it, with number 8 ready to go. Familiar music, a different name. It's TNA World Champion Nick Nemeth, back on familiar turf, and he hits the match at pace, but targets fellow TNA star Joe Hendry, and it's actually Nemeth who's able to get rid of the cult hero. But Hendry isn't the only casualty, because Damian Priest and Finn Balor are so embroiled in their own hate-filled personal war that they don't see Drew McIntyre coming, who eliminates them both at the same time. And it's a big measure of revenge for Drew McIntyre after Priest's cash-in at WrestleMania 40. But they almost don't even care. They hate each other so much that they keep fighting all the way back past Dominic, who is still upset. But then we hear the music of number 9, and it's Pete Dunne. Or so everyone thought, because it turns out it's R-Truth dressed, as he says, Butch. And Dominic runs over to him and he says, "Truth, you've got to give me your spot. You had to have seen that. I got robbed." But then Truth says, "My name ain't Truth. It's Butch." And Dominic says, "Fine, Butch, give me your spot." But Truth snaps and says, "I hate being called Butch." And then he smashes Dominic in the face and nails him with a bitter end. What the hell is Truth even doing? Well, Pete Dunne, the real Pete Dunne, wants to know the same thing as he storms out and drops Truth with the same move. And it's clear that it was actually Pete Dunne's spot all along. And he enters the fray. And then he's quickly followed by a very unsympathetic Rey Mysterio, who runs and jumps over the body of his own son to enter at number 10. Just in time to see Nick Nemeth get a massive elimination of LA Knight, who needed eyes in the back of his head while fighting Carmelo Hayes. But there's no rest for the wicked when number 11 arrives, and it's the American-made Chad Gable, who gets right to work on whoever he can get his hands on. Then it's the arrival of number 12 that not only ignites the crowd, but ignites a slew of eliminations. Lucha royalty, face to face with a man who wants that throne, only to have the momentum killed by Drew McIntyre, who starts fighting them both off, and we make way for the number 13, the ever-ominous Shinsuke Nakamura, who comes in and he puts it on Drew and Ray, but it then leads to another fun face-off between two dark-looking entities, and it shows the possibilities for Penta are just endless in WWE, including the next man who brings the house down at number 14. Jey Uso yeets his way into the match and makes an immediate impact going after Drew, and he has a barrage of strikes for him. However, on the other side, Penta strikes again after a devastating knee from Nakamura that stumbles Ray over towards the ropes. Penta clotheslines him over, and that respect is no more. Ray has fire in his eyes, looking at a potential dream match in the future. But Penta needs to be careful because Nakamura tries to send him out, but Penta fights him off, which leads to number 15, and it's not as well received as number 14. The crowd hates it, and Logan slowly makes his way to the ring and is in absolutely no hurry to launch himself into the action. But as he's doing that, we see Nakamura all over McIntyre. But not only with fists and kicks, he wants to hit him with the mist, but McIntyre ducks, and he then laces Nakamura with a massive claymore, and he stumbles over towards the ropes, only to be helped out by Logan Paul, who completely lucks out for his first elimination, and he revels in it. But as he jumps back in the ring, he gets smashed by a double super kick from Penta and Jey, and the crowd erupts. They love it. However, they quickly turn because then the Iron Man of the match irons out one of the biggest threats in it, and he gets the elimination of Penta, which gives him another chance to aim for Jey. But it's then time for number 16, and it's Kofi Kingston. He's of course flanked by Xavier Woods, who isn't in the match, and they have a lot to say, or at least they try and say a lot, because as usual, they're getting booed out of the building. But they still try and talk rather than heading to the ring. Oh, here we go. The spookiness now, huh? Oh, wait. I get it. You're here because of E. Because we betrayed our family. Well, if you want to talk about betraying family, you shouldn't be targeting us. You should be targeting him. Because he abandoned us. He was the one who left us behind. So how about you go and find Big E? And Howdy just laughs at them and then turns towards the entrance. And he gets in the face of Woods and Kofi, and they're yelling at him, telling him that he betrayed them. And then Woods slaps him in the face, and it's then that he snaps, and he picks up Woods, and he lands a big ending on the floor. And Kofi knows he's in trouble and retreats towards the ring as Big E follows him. And with Howdy still watching on, very proud of his work, he hears the music of another man he's very interested in. The Miz's music is playing, but he's not there. He clearly doesn't want to come out while Howdy's standing outside. But he eventually is pushed out by Triple H, who is forcing him to leave Gorilla. But he bolts past Howdy and towards the ring. And as he slides in, he's immediately flung over the top rope by Logan Paul, who gets another cheap elimination. But The Miz doesn't even care. He's just trying to run away from Uncle Howdy, who slowly walks after him and chases him out of the building. But none of the competitors are willing to leave the ring that easily. They're all in there, continuing to slug away. You've got Drew McIntyre and Jey. You've got Logan, well, being Logan, And you've got Big E and Kofi still trading, but the next man in has a connection to Big E, as he was the last person he saw before leaving. The crowd is deafening. Aleister Black is back, and Big E looks like he's seen a ghost, because he pretty much has. And it's as he's staring at the entrance that Kofi stabs him in the back once more, grabbing him and throwing him over the top rope for yet another chorus of boos directed at Kingston. But as he soaks up those boos, he gets met with a dose of reality. Big E, with a disappointed look on his face, just simply walks away. But you know, he's not walking away from the fight in general, and there's still plenty more to go. But there's plenty more left in the Royal Rumble as well, as Logan somewhat arrogantly grabs Aleister Black from behind, but the arrogance leaves his body as Black snaps on him and lights him up with a combo that rocks Logan big time. And with Drew and Jay still occupying each other on the other side, it's time for number 20, and it's Intercontinental Champion Bron Breakker looking to break the match apart. And he hits the ring with the speed you'd expect, and he's got spears for anyone he can find. He finds Black, he gets Jay, he gets Drew as well. But as he lines up Logan, he leapfrogs out of the way and then slides out of the ring. And he's extremely pleased with himself. And he's trolling the crowd in the front row as usual. But what he doesn't realise is Breakker is charging up, and he runs around ringside and drills Logan with a spear. He almost breaks him in half. And he puts Logan back in the ring purely so he can throw him back to ringside and eliminate Paul. It's a popular elimination, but then Bron has to face reality, because he's then faced with the 3 men he took down in order to get to Logan. And they're about to triple team him, but he's saved by the sheer magnitude of the 21st entrant. The Tribal Chief is in the building, and it's his first Royal Rumble for a number of years. But on his way to the ring, Black isn't just waiting around. He grabs Breakker to try and get him out, and it leaves Jay looking at Drew before Roman joins him. And Drew knows exactly what he's got to try and do, and he fights with everything against the bloodline that he hates with everything. But he's been in since number 1, so how much can he even have left? Well, it turns out hatred can give you a lot of energy. And in the heat of the battle, McIntyre gets Jey Uso out of the ring, and now he can finally get to the man who was last on his hit list. And Roman and Drew throw bombs. And as they are, number 22 enters, and it's Sheamus who goes right after Bron Breakker, considering their history, but of course is having to deal with Aleister Black at the same time, who is arguably one of the biggest threats in the ring. But another enormous threat enters at number 23 and throws the entire match into chaos. Punk is in, and now he has his chance to finally lock in a main event of WrestleMania, and the first to meet him is Breakker, who he runs through, and then it's Sheamus, who gets a taste as well, and then Black throws a black mass, but Punk catches it, drops him down, and has his chance to hit him with a GTS, and he wastes absolutely no time to get him out of the ring. It's a hell of a return for Black, but it ends at the hands of CM Punk, who then turns around to see Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre fighting. And he makes the decision to run over and help Roman, and together they eliminate Drew McIntyre. And this sends McIntyre off the deep end entirely. He slides back in, and he has a claymore for literally everyone in the ring. He runs around seeing red. He doesn't care who he hits, but as long as he is able to hit Roman Reigns. It's a wild scene. Every active member of the match is down, and as fate would have it, it's another member of the bloodline in next at number 24. Solo has a choice between CM Punk or the man who took the Ulufala from him. It's a deceptively hard choice for Solo, and he takes too much time because the clock ticks down and now enters number 25, and it's Sami Zayn, and Zayn runs down and goes right at Solo. He's making the assumption that he was going to go at his tribal chief, and Solo this time is going to have his hands full. There'll be no easy eliminations here, but as Roman and Punk both pull themselves up from the Claymores earlier, the mountain to climb only gets bigger with entrant number 26, and it's the giant Braun Strowman who hits the ring, and he is like a literal freight train. He hits every single corner and splashes every single member of the match, and all of the sudden the Strowman Express could well be on the tracks to a main event of WrestleMania. Cena, for the last time, is going to try and win the Royal Rumble from lucky number 27. But in his way is the Giant, and he, as usual, doesn't back down whatsoever. He goes toe-to-toe with Strowman, and he tries to pick him up for an AA, but he can't quite do it. And then he gets besieged by Solo Sikoa, who he has a big history with. Sami is then tied up with Strowman as we look forward to number 28, and it's Austin Theory or Grayson Waller, because not even they know who it is. But Theory is adamant, and he says, "It was me. Nick Aldis said it to my face. What are you even doing?" "Nah, mate. He said Grayson Waller. Plus, I need to get back at Cena for Money in the Bank." "You need to get him back." "I can get him back for us. I've already beaten him." But Waller ignores Theory, and he pushes him aside to walk towards the ring. And he indeed does take the spot, and he gets showered in booze for it, and it clearly pisses Theory off, who has been fed up with him for a while. And as Waller goes after Cena right away, Theory gets on the apron and punches Waller in the face. Cena picks up Waller and AAs him directly out of the ring, and it looks as though A-Town Down Under is now 6 feet under, with Theory walking out to applause. But there's no time to revel in his elimination, because Cena is attacked by Strowman again. Only this time, when Cena tries to pick him up, he does, and he plants Strowman with an AA, who tries to recover over near the ropes, but he's finished off by Sami Zayn, who nails him with a haluva kick for the Giant elimination, which leaves us with 5 potential winners of this match, each one of them with their own motivations, each one of them with more than enough ability to do it, but each one of them will have to go through the next man who is equally as capable, if not more. Rollins is in at the desirable number 29, and he's here to burn down everyone else's chances of main eventing WrestleMania, especially one CM Punk, who Seth targets straight away, but very quickly it becomes every man for themselves, because you can't afford to be one-track minded in a match like this. But the big question on everyone's mind is who will get the coveted number 30. It's a nightmare scenario. Fatu cuts loose in the match. It's the worst possible person for everyone involved, except maybe for Solo, who enjoys watching the destruction. Fatu runs riot on anyone he can get his hands on, especially Sami Zayn, who he brutally Samoan drops onto the floor for his first elimination. But his path of destruction leads to a face-to-face with John Cena. But as usual, Cena doesn't take a backward step, and he trades with Fatu. But it's not even a good idea, because Fatu lights Cena up with a vicious headbutt, which busts him open. And Cena is down, and the crowd are begging him to get back up. And as he tries to climb up the ropes with nothing left, it might be all in vain. Solo makes the most of the work already done by Fatu, and he's clearly not happy about it. But the heartbreak is on the outside as Cena is eliminated from his final ever Royal Rumble. And the thank you Cena chants ring out from the stadium as he goes to the entrance and thanks the fans in Indianapolis. And with Cena gone, it leaves just 5 men left. And with Rollins and Punk throwing hands on one side of the ring with pure, visceral hatred, we see Solo and Jacob stalking Roman Reigns. Solo says, "You took everything from me. We were supposed to be family. Well, I got a new family. And they actually respect me. And now you're gonna respect me. You're gonna learn that you will never, ever see the end of this." Solo Sikoa, since losing the Ulafala, has lost all respect of his so-called family. Fatu turns his back on him, but he also turned his back on Roman Reigns, who tosses him out now. And it feels symbolic. Roman throwing out the past so he can focus on his future. But his future involves 2 men from his past as we see the final 3 of the Royal Rumble. The history between all of them goes unsaid, and what a moment it is to see them all in the ring competing at the same time. But Seth is clearly the freshest, and he manages to drop Punk with a Revolution knee, and he drops Roman with a pedigree, which gives Seth an enormous opportunity. Punk is on the ropes, Roman is on the ropes, and Seth has a choice, just like Roman did at WrestleMania. He couldn't resist, and he was ready for him. And just like that, with the heartbreak all over Seth's face, knowing he did it to himself, we are down to 2. Roman Reigns and CM Punk, 2 of the biggest stars in the history of the company, are going toe-to-toe. And Punk flings Roman over the top rope, but he barely hangs on, even with an attempt from Punk to knock him off. Roman is able to fight his way back in the ring, and this time he sends Punk over the top rope, but now he's hanging on desperately, really testing the triceps that failed him last year, and he fights his way back in. He picks up Roman for a GTS, but Roman slips out of it, and he sends Punk into the corner, and then he smashes him with a Superman punch, flies off, looking for a spear, but Punk moves, and Roman's momentum carries him over the top rope. And once again, Punk tries to knock him off, but Roman fights him away. He tries again, but Roman is so determined. Roman will not wilt. There is nothing that could possibly stop him. Or so we think, because Roman is pulled off the apron by a man in a black hood. The crowd can't believe what they've seen. CM Punk wins the Royal Rumble, but who was it that handed him that win? You left me high and dry at the mercy of those thugs after WrestleMania. He never would. He was there. And we told you there was a favor, and that favor was to make sure CM Punk got his WrestleMania main event. Now he has. Roman Reigns is left on the island of relevancy alone. And CM Punk finally has his WrestleMania main event. But maybe more importantly, he has his wise man at his side. I think it's fair to say the real Royal Rumble didn't go like this one. But the Royal Rumble is of course the precursor to WrestleMania, and that starts right now. It's time for Jey Uso to put up or shut up. It's now or never for him as he comes up against a man he's never beaten. But which Jey will show up? Will it be Jey who second-guesses himself, or will it be the right-hand man, main event Jey Uso? Well, it may not matter, because as we see, Gunther always shows up, and it's a clinical destruction. And of course, Jey does get some offense, but it's largely dominated by Gunther, who bloodies Jey up badly. It is systematic, it's ruthless, which forces Jey's brother Jimmy to come out, and he has a towel in his back pocket, seemingly ready to throw it in. And Gunther has Jey in a rear naked choke, and he's screaming at Jimmy to throw the towel in. And Jimmy is pacing around, trying to decide if he stops the match or not. He does pull the towel out of his back pocket, doesn't throw it in. He puts it on the mat to reveal that the towel says, main event Jey Uso. And that fires Jey up, who fights out of the hold, and the crowd is right there with him. Jey does it! He overcomes his biggest obstacle, himself, and he pulls it out of the fire. It's an emotional and a joyous start to the show, but the mood changes quickly when we hit the second match, because this is about as personal as it gets, when Jade Cargill is in pursuit of the purest form of revenge on her attacker Naomi. And this is incredibly physical, and it blurs the lines of a show or a legit fight, even to the point where the referee threatens to stop it because they're bending the rules so much. But it ultimately comes down to pure power, and that is, of course, Jade Cargill, who manages to muscle Naomi up and smashes her face first off the mat with an avalanche Jaded, and she gets the revenge she needed. But will LA Knight be able to get the ultimate revenge on the Bloodline, who has made his life hell for years? His opponent, though, is arguably one of the most dangerous members they've ever unveiled, and he hits Knight hard right from the get-go. The Samoan werewolf Jacob Fatu is at his absolute destructive best, just like he had to be to earn the shot. But you have to believe that Knight didn't come this far just to come this far, and he wants that big WrestleMania championship moment that he deserves. And with the backing of the crowd in Las Vegas, he gets on top. However, as usual, that will always bring out the Bloodline. It's the same old story, but this time it's Jacob who is yelling at Solo to stand down. He doesn't want the help. He knows he can do it himself. But Solo starts arguing back, and it opens the door for Knight to nail a BFT. But Jacob springs right up, and he screams in Knight's face. However, Knight is having none of it, and he leaps into the air and nails a jumping BFT that seals the deal. And LA Knight retains. But as quick as he wins, he dips out of the ring because Solo and Tama Tonga attempt to get at him. But then we see an irate Jacob Fatu snap, and he drops Solo, and he hammers away on him, and the crowd can't believe what they're seeing. Tama Tonga doesn't even know what to do. Jacob leaves Solo laying and walks away. There seems to be another civil war brewing imminently. But speaking of wars, another one is on the way as Tiffany Stratton defends her championship against Charlotte Flair in the next match. And just like Cargill and Naomi, there is a lot of bad blood here as well. But instead of bending the rules, they try and top each other with pure wrestling ability. They're both cut from the same cloth, and it definitely shows. But in going for it all, you have to take some risks, and Stratton leaps off trying to take her out with a moonsault, but lands hard on her knee after Charlotte avoids. She collapses on the outside, clutching at the knee, and concern grows around the arena that she could be seriously hurt. And the referee is holding Charlotte back while the doctor's trying to tend to Tiffany on the outside. But Charlotte is having none of it. She throws the referee to the side and goes to the apron. And then she leaps off with a moonsault and wipes out all the doctors. She picks Stratton up and she throws her in the ring and then ruthlessly locks her in the figure eight and to an enormous amount of boos forces Tiffany Stratton to tap. And she wins her 15th World Championship. And to say that the crowd and the entire WWE Universe hates this decision is an understatement. Charlotte reigns supreme again and rubs it in everyone's faces. But speaking of faces, a man who has allegedly been covering his, according to Adam Pearce, is seen running to go and get Adam Pearce's attention and says he's found Rey Mysterio and LWO down. But Pearce is very skeptical. He questions just how Gable found Rey. And Gable just says that he was on his way to grab some medication for how sick he's feeling. But Pearce isn't buying it, and he storms off in the knowledge that El Grande Americano will be in action on night 2, but will Rey Mysterio even be able to compete? Well, we'll have to wait and see, but it is time for Randy Orton to compete, who has a tense moment with General Manager Adam Pearce, and there's a real good reason why. Orton couldn't silence the voices after hearing Owens was out of WrestleMania, but the voice he's hearing right now is Nick Aldis talking trash and looking outrageously in shape. He wants to fight. There was a few too many times Orton put his hands on him, and now he wants to do exactly the same, and it somewhat catches Orton off guard just how ready Nick Aldis was. And it's a really great and intense match. But one concern Triple H had when making this match official was the danger that Orton might pose to Aldis if those voices in his head ramp up, and they do. And due to Orton not being able to quite hit Aldis with an RKO yet, he goes to the corner and listens to the voices loud and clear. And he looks for a punt, but Aldis saw it coming and he rolls him through. 1, 2, no! He can't quite keep the shoulders down, but as they pop up, Orton sees a small opening and boom! He swiftly hits the RKO he was looking for, and he pins Aldis for the win. But is he done there? Orton spares him, and he respects the effort, and he silences the voices for now. But what won't be silent is the crowd for the main event, which is coming up after the next match, and we see Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, and CM Punk warming up in their locker rooms. However, one noticeable thing is Roman warms up alone. Paul is in CM Punk's locker room, which builds the tension for the triple threat match. But it isn't the only triple threat we have left, because the second last to go on is for the Tag Team Championships as the Street Profits defend against Motor City Machine Guns and DIY. This is wild. It's a total train wreck of a tornado tag match. It's incredible wrestling and absolute insane over-the-top action. All three teams are incredibly talented, but not only that, they know each other incredibly well. And the tag team creativity and the combinations are absolutely out of control. And there's barely anything separating them, which is shown in how it ends when Dawkins plants Gargano with Montez waiting for the frog splash. But not only that, we see Sabin and Shelley lining up Skull and Bones, and both teams hit it at the same time. And the referee makes the count. 1, 2, 3. But for who?
Here are your winners, and still WWE Tag Team.
The Machine Guns are devastated on the outside. They were so close. But it's the Profits who get the job done on the big stage. And it in fact sets the stage for the Night 1 main event. The layers of history between these three is deep, and everyone is incredibly invested on who's going to walk out the winner. But it really feels like Heyman is the only one that can be the true difference between all three first ballot Hall of Fame legends, and it's the ultimate test of loyalty deep into the match when Rollins is stalking Roman Reigns in a very familiar spot to where all of this began, and Paul is just watching it happen. Is he going to let him hit Roman? No. He grabs the chair from Seth, and Seth spins and takes it right back. And now he might not spare Paul this time. But then Roman actually makes the save for Heyman and spares Seth and sends him out of the ring. But it also gives us a moment between Roman and Paul where Roman is thanking him for the help. Paul is a mess. He's emotional. He's borderline hysterical. And he is just constantly apologizing and saying sorry to Roman. But Roman doesn't understand why. Then we find out. Paul stays true to his word and he remains in CM Punk's corner. And Punk smashes Roman's jaw with a GTS. And now he looks at Paul and it's he that is thanking him. The architect, the visionary, the opportunist takes one more chance to rub salt in the wounds of Roman Reigns, but also takes his chance to pin CM Punk, and he wins the main event. But even more than that, he burns down the entire world of Paul Heyman, who will now have to answer to both CM Punk and Roman Reigns as Night 1 goes off the air with a stacked Night 2 still to come.
This is my brutality!
Night 1 ended with a triple threat, and Night 2 starts with one. Ripley, Belair and Sky tear the roof off the Allegiant Stadium. And this is quickly rocketing to the top of the list of matches that could steal the show. It has massive spots, and it showcases the best of each woman perfectly. But it's Bianca Belair who showcases unbelievable strength when she launches Io out of the ring with a giant KOD that lands on top of Rhea Ripley. And then she throws Ripley into the ring and she manages to land one on her too. And as she does, she makes the cover. 1, 2, no! Io Sky got up and landed a moonsault for the save. She's got both women right where she wants them. She goes to the top again. She lines up Bianca until she gets cracked with a chair from out of nowhere, thrown by no other than Naomi. Everyone is so confused, but then it becomes clear. Naomi is here to help Bianca, and she grabs Rhea and she throws her out of the ring, paving the way for Bianca Belair to land the KOD on Io Sky and win the championship. However, the question still remains, did Bianca even know about this? And we get that answer very quickly as they come together on the stage and Bianca Belair proudly holds the title in the air to a stadium full of boos. And those boos are unfortunately to continue as we head into the next match. It's a first ballot Hall of Fame legend taking on a rookie who has no doubt impressed everyone. And the cockiness of Logan Paul just might get under the skin of AJ Styles, who self-admittedly hasn't hit his full stride since his return, which Logan takes advantage of. And he shows AJ that this will be absolutely no walk in the park. But what this does is it really wakes up AJ Styles. And I mean the real AJ Styles. And he comes fully to life. Logan is completely outclassed and he rolls out of the ring completely flustered until we then see Andrew Schultz in the front row. And he's really enjoying the suffering of Logan. And Logan decides to retaliate, and he pulls him over the barricade, and he's taunting Schultz. But Schultz doesn't react because he knows what's coming. And it's AJ Styles from above, and he nails him with a phenomenal forearm, throws him in the ring, and then gets him up and launches off for another, which opens the door to hit a Styles Clash for the win. And it gets him right back on track, and the crowd eats it up. They love seeing the phenomenal one back on top. But who will come out on top when the Women's Tag Team Championships are put on the line? Will Liv and Raquel get things off to the perfect start with excellent tag team offense? But it's answered straight back by the makeshift team of Bayley and Lyra Valkyria, who have a history of fighting against each other, but it's brought their in-ring chemistry up. But it's when the jilted member of the Green Regime, Chelsea Green, and US champion gets involved that things escalate. She's there on behalf of her cabinet, who lost the opportunity at this match to Bayley and Lyra Valkyria. But this takes Liv's eyes away from the action, distracting her on the outside, leaving Raquel to fend for herself. And we then see Bayley and Lyra combine, and it's got to be all over. 1, 2, no! Carlito pulls the referee out of the ring. And Lyra sees this and immediately goes after Carlito, and she leaps off the apron to take him out. But what that does is it leaves Bayley vulnerable. And while distracted, Liv tags in and nails her with Oblivion. And as always, the numbers win out, and Judgment Day retain the championships, which once again leaves Bayley frustrated and crestfallen. And as Lyra comes over to her, she drops her with a hard right hand, and she makes it known that they are far from done. But while Judgment Day triumphed in this match, it's a former member of Judgment Day who's in action next in a match that we technically saw last year, but it was very brief. And Drew McIntyre is out for blood right away because this is a street fight, and it takes no time at all for this one to hit ringside and for the carnage to begin. Drew really brings out the best, which is also the worst in Priest because he gets violent as well, which is something when weapons are involved we have rarely seen. But this is such a heated rivalry that McIntyre wants to take it to a whole other level, and the match winds up moving all the way through backstage, where they actually fight past the still injured Rey Mysterio, who we are still wondering if he will be fit to compete later tonight. It certainly doesn't look promising. But it also doesn't look promising for Drew McIntyre, who finds himself on top of the scaffolding in the parking lot, going back and forth. And it's insanely dangerous, but neither man is willing to wilt until one is forced to. And it leads to McIntyre climbing down and getting the pin and a huge WrestleMania win, which shows that he's willing to go to any lengths to get the job done, just like one of the 4 men will have to do if they're going to win the Intercontinental Championship. Deep into the battle, and Finn Balor has Penta in position for a shotgun dropkick. And right after that though, he gets buried with a lightning spear from Breakker, who then gets up and sees Dom on the apron, and he sprints at him looking for a spear, but Dom moves and Breakker crashes and burns, and it allows Mysterio to climb to the top rope with a down Penta and a down Finn Balor below. He leaps off and lands the frog splash on Finn. 1, 2, no! He gets wrenched off him by Penta, and he rips his arm off with sacrifice, and then quickly gets him into position and drops him with the Penta driver, and gets his first championship and his first of many WrestleMania moments. It's a literal dream come true, and one of the best matches of the weekend. And we see that Lucha Libre is alive and well in WWE. And Rey Mysterio looks to continue that trend on the second last match of the night, but we see him in the hands of the Doctor and with Adam Pearce backstage, and they heartbreakingly have to rule him out. And Rey says with all of his LWO brothers being out as well, he doesn't know what to do. But Adam Pearce says, well, I've been around a long time and I know a lot of people, and I made a call last night and it was tough. But I think I got someone you might have heard of. A luchador straight out of Mexico. He survived the orphanage fire, and straight out of Mexico, it's El Generico. The place comes unglued, and clearly El Grande Americano can't believe his eyes. And as the match gets underway, it's clear that Americano is rattled, which leads to the arrival of Ivy Nile, who tries to hand Americano something. But before she even can, Zelina Vega flies out of nowhere with a Hurricane Rana, and it gives Generico the window to throw Americano in the ring and put him on the top rope and hit him with the Brain Buster. And it picks him up his first and perhaps only ever win in WWE because of what happens next. He invites Rey Mysterio into the ring, and he gives him the ring out of respect, and then he vanishes. But Rey takes the chance when he unmasks El Grande Americano in front of everybody, and to the shock of the entire world, it's Chad Gable. No one saw it coming. No one can believe it, which is what the entire world is saying at the conclusion of the main event between John Cena and Cody Rhodes. The match starts somewhat amicable. Cena wants to prove that he can outwork Cody. He wants to show him that he can wrestle. Does a good job initially, and he shows his power. But it's Cody who really shows Cena how it's done, and he outworks him, and it really pisses him off. Cody is clearly getting under the skin of the Hall of Fame legend, and it's a very distinct tactic, because Cody even goes as far as doing push-ups in front of him.
If you smell what
The Rock is here! Everyone considered that he might be, but they weren't sure if he actually would be. And he approaches the ring on a mission to put Rhodes down again. And he's got Travis Scott with him, and he's talking all kinds of trash. Austin is here! The Texas Rattlesnake shows up to try and save the industry that he loves so much. And Travis Scott shows some balls and steps to Austin, but gets put down with a stunner. And Austin barely breaks his stride to get in The Rock's face, and the place erupts.
Holy shit! Holy shit! Holy shit! Holy shit! Holy shit! Holy shit! Holy shit!
What a moment in history! Two of the biggest rivals ever in the sport, duking it out one more time. However, while all eyes are on the two legends, Cena has pulled something out of his pocket, and he put it on his hand, and it's the gold Rolex. And as Cody climbs through the ropes, Cena blasts him with a right hand, and it immediately busts him open. And Cena goes to work. And the mood changes completely, because something sweeps over Cena. Something evil, something sinister. But that isn't all. It's Cody's blood all over him as well. And in perhaps the most savage way since Cena was destroyed by Brock Lesnar, Cena brutalizes Rhodes. This isn't at all what anyone wanted or envisaged for the match. But Cena doesn't care. He's not interested in giving anyone what they want. But what he does give is Cody the most vicious loss of his entire career. and he rips the title out of his hands, and therefore out of the fans' hands, tosses it on the ground in front of a bloody Cody. And as the show goes off the air, Cena's mission to ruin wrestling officially begins. All it took was a little ruthless aggression. If only we knew The Rock wasn't going to show up. But regardless, we need to now look towards SummerSlam, because the action kicks off with a massive battle, and it's Naomi defending the Women's World Championship against Rhea Ripley and Io Sky. And it's the perfect high-octane start, because these three women could go. It's full of unbelievable spots, each one ramping up to be crazier than the next. But there's only so much you can take, and as it reaches the deepest and darkest depths of the match, something has to give, and it does. Because Rhea looks for a riptide, but Naomi counters brilliantly, and then drops Rhea on her head, and now she looks for and nails a split-legged moonsault. But before she can follow up for the cover, Io swiftly climbs, leaps off, and lands a moonsault of her own. But Naomi used her momentum to roll her through and get the sneaky pin and escape with the win. Naomi successfully defends and rubs it in the face of her two opponents in the process. And it's just after this match that we see footage from earlier in the day, and it's CM Punk arriving ahead of his huge Night 1 main event with Gunther for the World Heavyweight title. And it's the champion that we also see arriving to a host of boos. And the boos continue when Logan steps out alongside Drew McIntyre to take on the unlikely team of Randy Orton and Jelly Roll. And this is short and sharp and mostly dominated by Logan and Drew, who are able to isolate Randy Orton, knowing that if they keep him in their sights, there's nothing that a musician can do without him. He is, after all, not even part of the industry, as Logan has reminded us and him constantly. However, Jelly Roll is still a man who's been disrespected, and he has two hands, and it explodes to life when Randy finally gets the tag, and Jelly runs in and piles on the pain for Logan Paul. But again, he's inexperienced, and he doesn't notice that Drew is stalking him, and he wants a claymore. But before he takes off for it, out of nowhere is Randy with an RKO. But now Logan is fighting back against Jelly Roll, but he fights back himself, and he checks him into the waiting arms of another RKO. And Orton feeds Logan to Jelly Roll for his own version of the three most dangerous letters, and they get the 3 count. It's a fun match, and it's a fun moment for Orton, but it does leave fans wondering if that will be the last time they see this weekend. We will have to wait and see. But while that was a light-hearted match, the next one certainly won't be, because the cage is about to be lowered, and it's time to see Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu settle their issues in a match where it takes one of them to take the ultimate risk in order to win it. But it's on the battlefield within the cage that Solo takes advantage of Fatu's risk to hit him with a barrage of Samoan spikes for the win. And he retains in what has to be one of the biggest wins of his career, and legitimizes him and his championship reign as he stands on his own 2 feet for a big statement. And it's a statement that the man is going to try and make up next when she faces Lyra Valkyria. But the difference this time is it's no DQ, and there has to be a winner. And Lyra, who is completely fed up with Becky, gets right on her as the bell rings, knocks her over the top rope, and it degenerates into a fight on the outside right away. It takes no time at all for the no disqualification portion to come into play. Both women are absolutely hell-bent on destroying each other, and Becky throws her through a table with a Bexploder. But unbelievably, that doesn't work as Lyra kicks out. And the Fighting Irish really comes out in both because Lyra brutally nightwings Becky onto a trash can, and not even that works. And then they're seen fighting in the corner with a pile of chairs ominously stacked beneath them. And Becky tries to load up Lyra for a giant avalanche manhandle slam for the top, but Lyra reverses and she instead takes up Becky and drops her. Lyra goes to another level and wins back her Intercontinental Championship that was stolen from her. And she silences the man. But will we see lightning strike twice in New Jersey and see another title change in the main event? Well, as they come out and embroil themselves in the battle, it's a back and forth that everyone expected. It's the self-proclaimed best in the world in CM Punk versus a man who might actually be in Gunther. And the crowd are all on their feet after 20 minutes of war because Gunther has dissected Punk from the opening bell. Every chop, every powerbomb, each one more vicious than the last. And CM Punk's ribs are hanging on by a thread. But some way, somehow, he's still alive. And Gunther hoists him up for a third powerbomb, but Punk counters with a Hurricane Rana into the turnbuckle. And now he claws his way back to his feet, and he gets to the outside, looks for a springboard clothesline which connects. He then gets the chance to pick up Gunther for a GTS, but his ribs give out, and Gunther crushes him with a lariat and makes the cover. 1, 2, no. CM Punk survives again. He's hanging on by a thread, and Gunther is furious. He climbs his way to the top rope, looking for the massive splash, but Punk rolls away at the last second, and he gets his chance. He does muscle him up for the GTS, and he hits it, but Punk's body just falls into the cover. But Gunther kicks out again, and Punk looks defeated. He looks spent, and Punk knows that he needs one more. He tries to drag him up, but his body gives out. He can't carry him, and now Gunther locks him in to a rear naked choke and makes sure to have his legs wrapped around the injured ribs, and Punk fades and fades and fades until the referee is forced to call it because Punk never tapped. He's just out cold in the grips of Gunther. And the Ring General doesn't believe in fairy tales and proves it tonight by standing tall with no interference, no tricks, just a dominant, merciless champion at the peak of his powers. And we see Punk dejected, sitting in the corner and wondering if he still has it in him. And Gunther glares back at him, holding the championship that he desperately wants. And he shows respect, but no mercy. Gunther marches on. And we also march on tonight too, where it's that time, once again. It's Tiffy time, but she has one of the most stern tests of her WWE Championship run so far against the indomitable Jade Cargill, who flexes her muscle all throughout because she's clearly got the power advantage, which everyone expected. But she's also very, very quick on her feet and displays incredible athleticism. But Stratton is a rising star for a reason and takes to the air to counter the power and speed of her rival. But it's the power of Jade that is almost impossible to deny because she nails Tiffany with Jaded right in the center of the ring. But Stratton remarkably kicks out, which sends Jade off the deep end. and she wants to end it for good. She loads up Tiffany on the top rope, and she wants an avalanche Jaded, but Tiffany counters brilliantly, and it takes all the wind out of Jade, and then Tiffy hits the prettiest moonsault ever, and just barely ekes out the win, and announces to the world, it's still Tiffy time. But it's also time to see footage from earlier in the day of Jey Uso and Roman Reigns arriving backstage to an enormous pop from the crowd in the arena. But as expected, that pop turns to boos when we see Breakker and Reed are arriving with the Oracle, Paul Heyman. And that is, of course, ahead of their hotly anticipated collision later in the night. But another match that is anticipated is also between Judgment Day and the unique team of Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss for the Women's Tag Team Championships. And like Orton and Jelly Roll on night one, it's the unlikely team of Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss that come together and work very well. But the also somewhat new team of Roxanne Perez and Raquel Rodriguez also work extremely well. And it makes for an excellent match, but the dynamics between the teams is what eventually decides the result. Because an overzealous Raquel tries to put Alexa Bliss through the announce table, but instead gets a DDT on the floor. And then in the ring, Roxanne is locked in the figure eight, but Roxy is tough, and she's refusing to tap and lose the titles for the Judgment Day. But that's when, seemingly against Charlotte's will, Alexa Bliss tags herself in and climbs to the top rope and leaps off, lands Twisted Bliss on Roxanne while Charlotte has her locked in. And she gets the cover and gets the win for the team. And we have new tag team champions in the women's division, but Charlotte seems apprehensive. She does not seem happy that Alexa went into business for herself, but there's also a part of her that is happy to take credit for the title win. But now attention turns to wondering if Judgment Day's pain is going to continue, because AJ Styles is up next, trying to win his second Intercontinental Championship against the, let's say, evasive Dominic Mysterio, who has magically been cleared to compete. But that doesn't mean he's going to take the challenge head on. In fact, he does the exact opposite, and he avoids AJ at all costs, because he knows the moment this becomes a genuine in-ring contest, he's in dire trouble. And that is proven because AJ eventually catches him on the apron with a fake out, and he gets his hand on him, and he goes to work. And of course, Dom is going to struggle with this big time, but he is plucky and manages to hang in there for as long as possible. Well, at least long enough for the inevitable Judgment Day interference, because here comes Finn and JD, and they quickly rush towards the ring, and while JD distracts the referee, Finn grabs a chair and places it into the ring, and now he is trying to distract the referee as well. But that's when the LWO arrive, and they pull them both off the apron, which leaves Dom no time to use his weapon because the referee's attention is back on the match. But he can do something with it, and that's slam it into the mat so the referee can hear it, and he throws it to AJ, who is left stranded, and the referee calls for a DQ. And AJ is livid because he knows that, as hard as it is to admit, Dom has outsmarted the Phenomenal One, and he keeps his Intercontinental Championship and holds it high in the air. But the question turns inevitably now to asking if John Cena can keep his title, or will the American Nightmare ruin the farewell tour? Well, we see them warming up for the huge main event that takes place later in the night. But that's one of the main events, because most people see the second last match of the night very much as a dual main event in itself, and that is when Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed take on Jey Uso. Well, the crowd will tell you everything you need to know. And with the OTC in the building, you know things are going to get crazy. But he doesn't get a chance initially because Jey is immediately isolated and immediately honed in on, immediately hurt by Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed. and it pleases the Oracle no end. He enjoys the pain that's being inflicted, but he's wary and making sure to remind Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed the danger of Roman Reigns that still lurks. And the place explodes when Roman finally, inevitably does get in, and it's a white-hot tag, and he takes it up to Bronson Reed, trying to cut the big man down. He knows he's going to need to nullify him, but it's when Bronson eventually does get the tag, we see the big showdown between the big dogs, and they begin to trade. But it's the OTC that wins this trade. He's still the man around here, and he shows firsthand to Bron Breakker when he flies up for a spear, then gets caught with a Superman punch. And now Roman can line him up for the fatal spear, but as Roman builds momentum off the ropes, Jay gets tagged in, and Heyman grabs Roman's foot as he launches off and trips him, so he lands on his stomach where Reed was posted up and nails him with a tsunami. And then on the other side, Breakker has grabbed Jay, flipped him over onto the apron, and spears him off it. And then, like lightning, is able to pick him up, throw him back in the ring, builds momentum of his own, and splits him in half and pins him. And just like others tonight, they make a statement. The Heyman guys do it, and perhaps he was right. These two are destined for the very top of the mountain. And it might not be a prediction, but a spoiler. However, everyone has their predictions in for the main event of night 2. But no one truly knows how it's going to go. But there's only one way to find out. It's the culmination of the biggest weekend of the summer for the biggest prize in the game, and you couple that with the fact that it's a street fight, and it heightens everyone's awareness, especially Cody, because he knows that Cena has friends in very high places. But the match is as you would expect, because it breaks right down. He wants his title back that badly that he said he will happily put virtue aside to do it. And he gets extra violent, battering Cena with a steel chair over and over. And the crowd starts to grow uncomfortable, and the mentality of both men starts to shift. John Cena is now in survival mode, and Cody Rhodes is the hunter. But it's classic Cena. He keeps getting up, he keeps firing back, but Cody is different. There's no sportsmanship, there's no pageantry. He is stomping Cena down in the corner over and over, and then he starts throwing rights and lefts, and he busts open the champion. And the referee tries to check on Cena, but Cody throws him out of the ring. There is something behind the eyes. And then, in a very candid moment, Cena stops, and the man who never gives up, the 17-time world champion, is actually asking Cody to back off. But Cody is stoic. He's committed. He not only smells blood, but he sees it, and he isn't backing down. The place explodes! The final boss is here! And Cena's expression has changed because he knew this was going to happen. The Rock slides into the ring and he locks eyes with Cody. The crowd is hanging on every single second. Cody doesn't flinch. He's completely deadpan, and The Rock whispers something in his ear, and then Cody drags Cena up and plants him with not one, not 2, but 3 crossroads. He covers Cena as The Rock watches on as Cody gets the 1, 2, 3. And Cody collapses with the championship in his hands. He did it by any means necessary and put virtue aside. We then see the image of the two of them standing united. The American Nightmare didn't just win tonight. He sold his soul to do it. And with The Rock by his side, the landscape of the WWE shifted forever. Once again, overestimating how much The Rock is interested in WWE. But it was War Games that had everyone's interest at Survivor Series. It's on, and as always with War Games, it gets violent, and it gets violent quick. The chaos erupts, and these women absolutely bring it. It doesn't take long at all for the weapons to come out, and the cage is littered with metal and wood. And one standout is Lash Legend, who announces herself on the big stage with an incredible feat of strength. But she is equally matched by the ultimate powerhouse in Rhea Ripley. However, the real star of the show and any War Games match is Io Sky. And she's well into the match, and she's climbing up the cage, and the crowd climbs to their feet with her because they want to see it. They want to see her leap off the top. However, those cheers quickly turn to boos when she's stopped by Kairi Sane. And now they're on top of the cage and trading shots. But meanwhile, down below, the match is hanging in the balance because Becky Lynch has AJ Lee locked in at a disarmer. And AJ is on the verge of tapping, and she's going to lose the match for her team. But this is when Io shines once again, and she fights Kairi off, and she throws her off the top of the cage, but she lands on Rhea Bliss and Flair, which means AJ is still in grave danger of tapping. And Io then has to do what she does best. And she leaps on top of Nia Lash and Asuka, and inadvertently it breaks up the submission, and everyone is down except for AJ and Becky. And Becky tries for it again, but this time AJ is wise to it. She counters, and with her last piece of energy she has left, she locks in the Black Widow. And Becky fades and fades and fades until she eventually has to tap. And just like that, AJ Lee wins War Games for her team, and it shuts the mouth of Becky Lynch once and for all as San Diego goes nuts. And that ovation continues when we see footage of the men's War Game teams arriving ahead of what is the most stacked lineup we've ever seen in a War Games match. And the place rumbles with excitement ahead of what is going to be an enormous main event. But speaking of main event, Cena's final match on that very show is approaching, but first he has the slimy roadblock of Dominic Mysterio that he has to get through. And of course, this is Cena's final ever PLE appearance. But like so many of his appearances on this farewell tour, it is anything but straightforward, because Dominic actually has a lot of support from the crowd, given this is his hometown. And Cena recognizes it, and he's talking to Dominic during the match, and he says, "You hear that, Dominic? They believe in you. Hell, I believe in you. But I don't think that you think you can do this clean. So why don't you try?" And Dom is clearly affected by this advice. You can see him second guessing, and he clearly has heard the message and perhaps wants to prove not only Cena wrong, but himself. And he fights with everything. And it really does get the crowd behind him because, yes, he is trying to do things the right way. And he gets damn close. He lands everything that he's got in his arsenal. But Cena manages to hang on and even fire back with everything he has as well. And it's a fair and proper fight. And Cena respects this a lot. So much so that when he has Dom down on the outside, on the verge of being counted out, he has the thought that he doesn't want to win in this fashion. And he throws Dominic back in the ring. But what he now realizes is Dom, from under the ring, has grabbed brass knuckles. But not only brass knuckles, word life ones. And Cena quickly grabs them off him and he places them outside the ring, which is when Dom strikes and nails him with a 619 as he's leading out. And Dominic, wasting no time at all, lands the biggest and most important frog splash of his career so far to reclaim his Intercontinental Championship somewhat cleanly. And Cena, despite the loss, hears the cheers from the crowd because Dom, while a little bit slimy, didn't use the knuckles, and he respects the cleverness, and he actually applauds him, and Cena shows him respect, just like the crowd shows Cena respect in his final bow on a PLE with one date remaining. Just like Nikki Bella feels like she has one chance left to get back to the top of the mountain, and she takes on the indomitable Stephanie Verker for the World Championship because she lured Verker into thinking she had her back just to stab her in it. And Verker looks to teach her a lesson, and she completely out-wrestles her in every single way possible. And she's clearly the better performer. But does that mean she has the killer instinct? Because Nikki Bella sure as hell does. She has her on the outside and she takes things out there to make it more even, and she uses the environment to her benefit. And this has the referee threatening to disqualify Nikki, but she has Verker wore down enough to look to end it. And she stalks Stephanie Verker and she picks her up on her shoulders. It's gonna be over, but Verker lands a poison rana, but holds it. And it is, of course, always the precursor to the kill shot. And she lines up Nikki and nails it. And it's elementary. 1, 2, no. Verker is pulled out of the ring before the referee hits 3 by Brie Bella. And she immediately lays into Stephanie Verker. And it causes a disqualification. But that's better than the fate that Nikki was about to suffer. And then together, they deliver Stephanie her fate, which is a violent beatdown. And as it's happening, Nikki says to Stephanie, "It's only just starting for you. This is the beginning of your end." Verker is left in a heap, and the twins are back. Not to create magic, but to create a nightmare. But speaking of nightmares, it's time for the main event of the evening. It's Cody Rhodes that puts his hand up to lead what he says is his team into the battlefield. And of course, putting his hand up to start on the other side is Drew McIntyre, whose team has the advantage. He wants first crack at Rhodes, and they fight tooth and nail from the off before the man who earned the advantage then enters, and that of course is Logan Paul. And he brings in the first pieces of artillery, all so they can inflict maximum damage on the WWE Champion Rhodes. And very quickly, it becomes apparent that he is desperate for help. And it arrives in the form of Jimmy Uso, who is quickly able to step in and even the odds. That is, of course, until the next man enters the fray, Big Bronson Reed. A man who laid it all on the line in the last War Games and paid for it with his body. And he's more than willing to do it again. Not only does he create an outnumber, he creates carnage. And that draws out the need for him to be nullified, and who better to do it than the brother of the man he just destroyed. And he enters and sinks his teeth right into the war. And he thrives just like he has with his brother so many times before in this setting. But how long can you truly be in control when Bron Breakker is waiting in the wings? The answer is not long at all. Because when he enters, he runs riot and he starts throwing anyone and everyone around he can get his hands on. He's got to be considered the ace up the sleeve of this Heyman-formed battalion, and there's very little you can do to nullify a guy like this, except, of course, if you have a Roman Reigns, and he is set to enter next, or so he thought, because this time he's stopped by CM Punk, who decides it will be him who enters. And he does. And the match is ever so close to getting officially underway. But will this tension wind up costing them? Because Roman is like a caged animal. But while he's an animal, there's still a beast to be unleashed. And Lesnar tears it apart. This is the true masterstroke from Heyman. But they know that this plan also involves the one. And the OTC enters the match last. And just like that, War Games is officially underway. Because finally, he and Roman properly get their hands on each other. Only for Roman to be saved by his cousins. The very reason that he entered this war. But it's when Jay throws a super kick at Brock, he connects with Roman instead. And that's where things go south. Because Brock tosses Jay into the structure and breaks the chain on the door, leaving it open. But now Punk, who is there being held at bay by Logan and Braun, is in trouble. And Jimmy has been taken out by Lesnar. But also now, Roman is still defending his territory by trading with the Beast as well, leaving two men. And it's the two that have been at each other's throats for weeks. And they're trading shots deep into the brutal and bloody war. It's Cody and Drew, who are essentially the only two men left who could decide the result. And they fight to a double down situation. And Paul Heyman is at ringside screaming for Drew to get up. He wants Bronson to do something to take control. He wants Logan to pull something out. He wants Brock to end it. Anything from anyone. Until he is passed by a man in a hood, and Heyman saw who it was, and he immediately panics. Viper strikes, but not who anyone would have ever expected. Drew McIntyre cannot believe what he's seen. No one can, especially Heyman, who looks on in disbelief, and his team is handed the War Games win by, of all people, Randy Orton. And Cody is pinned, and Drew McIntyre is finally feeling vindication of his pursuit. And not only have we witnessed tension in the ranks between Punk, Roman, and even Jay, but now, more than ever, the road to WrestleMania in Las Vegas is lined with venom.